Welcome back to yet another Cutter Simpsons Unhinged. This will be a big one. So let's review the 26 we have done. And of course, the playlist is in the description below as per usual. So we did the episode Lisa Goes Gaga about it being terrible and how it was just a 30-minute advertisement for her. We talked about Marge and Homer in the 90s plot hole before Bart's birth. We also talked about Homer with Bongo and how Bongo was taken away from Homer, and Homer is so mad he can't trust dogs or apes. We talked about Homer at the Bats, the famous season 3 episode that saw them beat the Cosby Show first run syndication when The Simpsons were on Thursdays. We talked about season 21 and the Olympics episode in which, Homer and Marge become curling in Vancouver. We talked about Maud's death from season 11 and how it changed characters like Flanders and Homer forever. And then the 15th season Christmas episode about Homer trying to redeem himself, but Flanders can't seem to get past it and wants to compete with Homer. We talked about Principal and the Pauper, the season 9 episode that basically ruined the Simpsons' golden age and made them jump the shark, and how much it could have been bigger. We talked about season 5's Homer and Apu, the episode that saw Apu move in with the Simpsons because Homer ruined his job and all that. But we talked about Apu in a way. And then we talked about Lisa in season 7 becoming the vegetarian that she is, and how, she had to learn how to tolerate, not force things on people, and how Paul McCartney was basically run in because Lisa had to be a vegetarian. Love is a many strangled thing. This was the episode in which we talked about Homer, how the Simpsons basically are trying to tell us that Homer strangling Bart is actually good because it gets Bart's demonic problems out of the way. But strangling someone is terrible, even in cartoon form. Todd why has forsaken me. This was the episode that Todd turns his back on God because of what he did to Maud, and Ned decides to send him live with the Simpsons, and then has an accident. Lisa gets an F1. I needed to give Lisa a decent one, like the F1 in season 35, where she's a kart racing genius, and how Homer and Marge's parental things kind of flop. Homer is the worried parent, and Marge is the laid back one. We talked about the gay marriage episode from season 16, in which it was massive, and how Homer would actually chase the almighty dollar, and that Patty comes out of the closet, even though Simpson fans knew it was going to happen. Season 32 is Diary Queen, when Bart steals Edna's diary, but realizes that Edna probably was talking about him, so he does well. However, Lisa can't help but feel like Bart's set up for failure, so she ruins Bart. However, Flanders helps Bart cheer up. We talked about the Family Guy episode in 2014 with The Simpsons, and how it was made, and how somehow it may have given The Simpsons a second wind and fans didn't like it. Season 10's Bart the Mother. We talked about Bart and Marge's problems with each other and how Bart tries to be responsible and all that. We talked about season 17's double dip with the Italian thing, how a B plot in episode, which the B plot was Lisa trying to learn Italian and Milhouse trying to help her out, and then it turned into the next episode that they go to Italy in the Italian Bob and talk about Sideshow Bob. We also did Homer's Enemy season 8, which is actually the same season as the one we're going to talk about today, but it was basically Homer's Enemy, in which Frank Grimes calls Homer out for his Slav attitude and all that, and then he ends up dying, and Homer ends up getting rewarded. And then Kill Gill from season 18, which brought Marge's psychological problems there. And I dared to go there, where the real Jim has not. I don't know why he's delaying. We talked about the Simpsons movie, in which, it was complex and had so many plot lines, and how Homer basically may have purposely set up his path. That's what the fans say. We also talked about the Hail Mary pass, the episode from after the 2005 Super Bowl, and how everyone was shocked about how blatant the halftime show was, and it went religious. We talked about Trash of the Titans, in season 9, in which Homer tries to be sanitation commissioner and causes Springfield to move 5 miles down the road, and how maybe Springfield moves every so often to avoid creditors and make things weird. I talked about the FIFA episode from season 25, Homer being a World Cup referee despite all his problems, and of course me croaking out all the details. Who Shot Mr. Burns? That's episode about, well, Who Shot Mr. Burns and how there are a lot of theories, motives, and narratives. And last week I talked about the Trios of Horror episode from season 2, the first one, and you never forget your first. And I talked about my favorite Trios of Horror segments. So today, because it is close to the end of Pride Month, we will do a Simpsons gay themed episode to end June in a sense. We're talking about season 8's Homer's Phobia and how Homer was terrified of gay people and how it actually won an award for its portrayal. Jerkhouse Homer, Marge's worries, Bart's pranks, Lisa's causes, Maggie not talking a lot, Grandpa being senile, Patty and Selma boring Marge, Artie Sif is a jerk, Chief Wiggum making things happen, Mr. Burns being a dick. You can never stop the Simpsons. Heaven knows they've been trying for years and they still come back for more. 37 seasons is a bit much, don't you think? It's a crazy Simpsons. Something happens. A do 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 do. This is not a clip show. Have no fear. I've got topics for years. All right, so it's time for one of the most controversial Simpsons episodes at the time and everything. So we're in season 8. We got Homer's phobia. Of course, this was the season in which Homer's enemy was also great. But anyway, Homer's phobia starts with Bart doing some kind of Powerball lottery thing to do with different types of objects in the dryer. Unfortunately, though, the weight of everything crushes it, and the gas line gets ruptured. Bart tries to get out of it by saying force majeure, meaning that no refunds. I bet Dunkin' Donuts he had to give refunds. Worst part is the Simpsons are now on the hook for a $900 gas bill. Homer takes a massive jar of pennies to the gas thing, but unfortunately it falls down into the ground and he says, "Hello, China." Martin decides to sell a Civil War figurine to pay for the gas bill. Lisa's not so sure about it. However, March says that I think our relatives would have loved to see piping hot underwear and all that. So they go to the store that sells the old stuff. The guy John says that he even has a TV guide with owned by Jacqueline Kennedy, and she thought that Mindy lived with Mark, not Mork. So anyway, it's some great stuff. And then Marge gives the figurine to John, and Lisa says, "Please don't take this as us celebrating Civil War stuff." However, John tells her that it's actually just a whiskey thing. And Marge says, "Well, I guess I know Grandma's secret drinking problem." Homer looks at stuff and says, "There's a lot of camp stuff. We even have some." So he invites John to come in. Of course, John is played by John Waters, the guy who did some other stuff. I would say Pink Flamingos, because that's no, that's not the one. I don't know. He did some trash ones. I don't think he was the guy with Divine and all that. That would be different. But anyway, yeah, John Waters has some tasteless stuff. And his pencil thin mustache was replaced with a wavy one for The Simpsons. Nevertheless, John comes to the Simpson home, is enjoying everything, including Itchy and Scratchy, to Lisa's bewilderment. But anyway, Homer and John seem to hit it off. The next day, Homer wants John to come by with his wife and, enjoy the house. However, Marge says that I don't think he has a wife. Oh, a bachelor. I can send him up. No. And then Marge tries to get Homer to realize that he loves the company of men. Who doesn't? Homer, listen to me. John is a homo, yes, sexual. Wah! What could have been Homo sapiens? Unfortunately, Homer goes bonkers after the commercial breaks in. Oh my god, I dance with a gay, I dance with a gay. What am I gonna do? Don't tell anyone, don't tell anyone. And then Marge says, Homer, you don't know what you're worried about. Homer tries to make things seem that he wants his homosexuals flaming. Now, of course, this is what the show says, not my personal opinion. But anyhow, Homer bails out of the tour of Springfield that John sets up for the Simpson family. John gets bumped into by Smithers, and something's up. Smithers says, "This is your sick mother. Don't start wailing." So anyway, things happen, and then Homer basically asks the family questions about John. Did he make you gay? Did he make you gay? Homer. And then Bart's holding a sapper that John used. Sup, sup. Of course, we also see a Japanese Santa Claus, which John talks about at dinner. Well, sorry. And then Homer's watching TV, and then Bart comes in with a Hawaiian shirt. Homer asks Bart, where did he get that shirt? I don't know. Came out of the closet. I see. And then at dinner time, Marge presents cupcakes with green cactus frosting or pink frosting. Bart goes for the green frosting. Homer nods. And then Bart goes for the pink frosting. And Homer goes, obviously, you can't see me doing the things. Homer starts to eat his pillow. Marge noses and tries to stop Homer. Homer says, "Marge, I saw Bart with a Hawaiian shirt on." So, there are two types of people who wear Hawaiian shirts: gay people and big fat party animals. And I don't think Bart is a big fat party animal. He could be, he got the genetics. And then Marge says, "If you wore a Hawaiian shirt, it would be safe." Yes, exactly. I hope you know this is all your fault. Do you have to be so feminine with the boy? However, Marge says, "Homer, I don't think that means anything. And second of all, if Fart is gay, it's probably because you are not giving him attention. Good night." So basically, Marge sees through Homer's ruse to try to blame other people. Blame blame others on what you do not understand. Yeah, it was kind of a thing that Homer was trying to think. But then Homer's told to spend time with Bart. So then Homer decides to spend time with Bart, but then sees Bart dancing in a bouffant wig to Cher's Shoop Shoop song. That wig would actually make it another appearance in a Simpsons episode, the Grift of the Magi episode, the Christmas episode, in which Bart and Milhouse cross dress and jump up and down on Homer and Marge's bed, but Homer and of course Bart wrecks his spine on Homer's bowling ball, and Homer wants the non-gay explanation. Nevertheless, Homer is not too happy and then finds John talking about Helen Lovejoy to Marge. Says, "You, I should have known." John offers some candy to Homer, and Homer refuses to take it. Marge basically wants to know what Homer's problem is. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No, I'm not, Marge. He's embarrassing us with everything. That Navy is now a floating joke. They took out names like Lance and Julian. Those were the manliest names ever. And they also, I can't remember the third part, but anyway, the word queer. Yeah, that's our word for you. We need it." Homer, of course, is getting a little angry and says, "I am not happy with this, and I'm taking my son back." So anyway, Homer decides to plunk Bart in front of a cigarette ad for 2 hours to try to make him straight and all that. Bart basically says, "Why do I have to do this? You'll thank me on your wedding night." So Bart looks at the thing, and Homer comes back after a few hours and says, "How do you feel?" "Well, I feel like a cigarette." "Terrific. What's your brand?" "Anything slim." And Homer thinks that's a gay thing. But the billboard was for Laramie Slims. How did Homer not see that? Anyway, Homer decides to take Bart to a steel mill. Unfortunately, it doubles as a gay club called the Anvil. And Homer says, "Has the world gone mad?" And then they do the "Everybody Dance Now, Gonna Make You Sweat" song by C&C Music Factory. He then Homer tells his story in the third act to Barney, Moe, and Lenny, and basically says that, and everyone was gay. Homer, all the steel mills are like that, says Moe. Anyway, they decided to take Bart deer hunting because that could make him a man. So Homer plunks Bart from John's store. Basically says, I'm getting our son back. Of course, Bart, noticing the thing with Homer, Moe, and Barney, basically says that men sharing a space and all that hunting seems a little gay. That is the wrong attitude, young man. So anyway, they try deer hunting. Barney drinks a lot, but nothing happens. Homer feels like a failure. Although Moe does tell Homer, we could take Lisa hunting and make her a man. She won't go with us. She's a vegetarian. Homer, are you and Marge cousins or something? There have been accusations that Homer and Marge actually do share a bloodline. Because remember Who Shot Mr. Burns when I talked about it? And Marge makes the line that when I had married your father, I had to take his DNA. That's possibly a tell that Homer and Marge may be blood relatives, not brother and sister, but maybe long lost cousins. Who knows? And of course, this was season 8, the year after Lisa became a vegetarian, which I talked about. So anyway, they decide to head to Santa's village with the reindeer and have Bart shoot a reindeer, but Bart refuses to. Homer demands Bart shoot a reindeer, and Bart allegedly shoots one, but he doesn't. He didn't pull the trigger. It was just the sound of 2 reindeer horns or antlers clicking each other. But then the reindeer go after Bart. Homer tries to save himself and then gets hit tenderly in the ribs with the antlers. Fortunately, though, John, after being tipped off by Lisa about Homer's plan, unleashes the Japanese Santa Claus and the reindeer retreat. Homer is thankful for it and all that. Moe and Barney, of course, cower, and then basically Moe says, saved by a sissy. Well, it's good old suicide for me. His words, not mine. However, Homer says, this guy is a fruit and he saved us. Queer, queer, queer. Sorry, queer. Um, that's what you would be called that. That or John. And Lisa says, this is as tolerant as Homer is. You got to take it. All that. So basically, Homer then has a massive concussion and tells Bart, any way you want to live is okay by me. Huh? He thinks you're gay. He thinks I'm gay. Of course, Lisa breaks the news gently. So that was the episode. Now, before I get into my manly notes, all that, I just wanted to make sure that I made everything okay. Yep, and everything. There were rumors circulating that there was going to be a episode with Lisa discovering the joy of camping things and maybe Bart turning gay or something, but nevertheless, it was combined, and John Waters instantaneously got the thing. Now, the Fox censor actually did not like Homer's phobia being aired because of the timeline and everything with 2 pages of notes. However, there was a actual replacement of changing the guard at Fox, and the new Fox president actually said it was acceptable for broadcast. So that was beautiful. That it took a changing of the guard at Fox to do anything. Now, there's been a lot of LGBT things about that. And this episode actually did win an Emmy for its portrayal. And also the GLAAD Award for LGBTQ plus community and all that. Gave it a award. So let's talk about Homer and Bart's ways of dealing with homosexuality. So practically, we talk about Bart and his homosexuality. Is Bart gay? No, he's only 10 years old. And all that. So I don't think he is gay. There are hints he has an infinity for female stuff, cross dressing and all that. And I talked about it, of course, with that whole Grift of the Magic thing. There was also an episode in which Lisa goes into a beauty pageant and Bart shows her some tips and all that, and even thinks he should enter the pageant with his high heels. Lisa, that Homer Bart has weird tendencies and all that, including reading that Queer Focus magazine. That if you see it, you'll see it. If you're listening to it, then it's different. But yeah, there are hints about Bart's sexuality and all that, and maybe his thing with Millhouse. The one thing to know is when the episode is it Future Drama? The episode which Bart learns his future is tries to be with Jenda, the high school prom and all that. and stealing Lisa's scholarship before giving it back. I think that, and then Bart saves Lisa instead of being with Jenda. And Bart says that basically he'll find a woman that's good for him. And then Professor Frink says, "You do at age 83. You die 1 minute later." Now, of course, a lot of the Simpsons people fans probably figured that, Bart can't find the right woman for him. He might turn queer. Like, that could be a possibility. And the most likely suspect would be Milhouse. I mean, let's look at it this way. Bart's pushy towards Milhouse. It is actually akin to the Boldyke situation. But the fact of the matter is that, that's a massive stereotype that can't be good. Also to note that, Milhouse is easily infatuated with Lisa. Lisa is not infatuated with Milhouse. It's a possibility that Milhouse would like to be part of the Simpson family. Marge does actually show some kindness towards Milhouse that his parents don't. It's possible, and this is my fan theory, is that Bart probably wanted to marry Milhouse in a way to make sure Milhouse stays in the Simpson family, not with Lisa, but with Bart. But somehow Marge may have heard about Bart wanting to propose to Milhouse and tried her best to make sure Milhouse stays with Lisa so that she doesn't feel in the cold and all that. I mean, I think Marge wants Milhouse in the family so badly she might ruin it and might get Lisa and Milhouse to marry and maybe ruin Lisa's relationship so that Lisa settles for Milhouse. And also Milhouse could have paid off Marge and all that. That's my theory. Of course, you don't have to take it as gospel, and I shouldn't. You shouldn't. But of course, we talk about Homer's anti-gay views and all that. And this was the first episode. This was this the first episode? I don't think so. That Homer showed some things about gayness and all that. There was the episode Bart versus Australia. Homer thinks Uruguay is pronounced "you are gay," which is stupid. Also, the family's upset because Lisa, and Lisa versus Malibu Stacy. Lisa somehow got the family to march in the gay pride parade. I mean, I could have easily put that screen capture in, but I didn't. Uh, of course, there's the episode Jaws Wired Shut when Homer has his jaw wired shut. And the first segment was basically the gay parade in Springfield and had people voicing the Smithers and Patty coming out of the closet, although they both did later episodes. And then even a dog one, and Homer finally snaps when Santa's Little Helper shows interest into a bulldog in a police outfit. So anyway, yeah, Homer's anti-gay views are massive and all that. There was that episode Three Gays of the Condo in which Homer realizes that Marge only stayed with him because she was pregnant with Bart. I think we all knew that. So Homer gets butthurt and tries to move in with Milhouse with Kurt Van Houten, but the place is sad with suicides and wailing. So then he finds a place with two guys, Julio and Grady. One of them played by Scott Thompson of Kids of the Hall. And anyway, Homer learns about their gayness and all that. And actually, Homer thinks, well, what will happen? Will my prejudices or my newfound acceptance win out? And of course, Homer enjoys the gay lifestyle. Marge wants to reconcile with Homer, but Homer drinks too much and misses out on the chance. And then Grady kisses Homer. And then Homer goes to the hospital for alcohol poisoning because actually Homer realizes that maybe alcohol ruins him, and Moe's like, I can't lose his business. So anyway, and then of course Homer and Marge get back together. And of course it's like, season 2, Simpson and Delilah, when Homer gets a hair replacement thing and gets a promotion and all that, and then his assistant Carl does all that. everything and actually takes the fall for Homer's problems. So yeah, we got that one. And then of course the episode I talked about, there's something about marrying that Homer is anti-gay because remember when Lovejoy refused to marry everyone and Mayor Quimby says that he's stupid because there's big bucks to be had, and then Homer looks at the gay couples as money and basically says those guys do have the right to give me money for a big screen TV, and then he dumps off the sign saying death before gay marriage. It only proves that Homer will lose his views over the almighty dollar. I mean, Homer does a good job marrying people and all that, and he actually wishes to marry more people, even though everything dries up and all that, because he's short of $12,000. So anyhow, he does marry or tries to marry Patty and Veronica, but Veronica is a man dressed as a woman to get on the LPGA tour, and Patty accepts her sexuality the way it was. All that she does have some girlfriends and all that. In season 31, when they went to Costa Rica, Patty's upset that her girlfriend is close to Homer and all that. However, Marge sets her straight, saying that Homer just Homer wants you to be happy and all that. He's upset over Selma being with you because you pressure Selma too much. But yeah, it's weird how Homer just gives up his fuse just for the almighty other. Now, there's nothing wrong with Homer in a sense. A lot of people hate the LGBTQ community. I know there's different letters and all that, but how I was raised is LGBTQ plus and all that. It's too many letters in the alphabet to remember. But my views are simple. I tolerate gay people. I tolerate the LGBTQ community. What I don't like is people pushing you to do all that. There are people I know that actually are booted from events because they say, well, I'm not going to your event. Fine, then you're kicked out of my restaurant or whatever it is. Which is plain stupid. Okay, you want us to accept you and all that. And I accept you. I tolerate the LGBTQ community, but you don't force things on people. It's like religion. I mean, I'm a Christian, I know it, but I don't Bible thump. And my buddy who got me to the Baptist church doesn't Bible thump either. He is a proud Christian, but he is not a pushy one. He never pushed me to the religion, and I accept it. As long as you're not preaching things, then people will accept you for who you are. You don't force people to enjoy your company. You make them be tolerant. Tolerance is better than being pushed into it. That's the story, Morning Glory, and that's all there's to it. And no, I don't have homosexual tendencies. If you're asking, thanks for asking, but no, I don't swing that way. And nor do I discriminate against that way. I can't. That's not me. So that's it for today. We are going to have a special midweek episode of The Simpsons Unhinged. The next one comes out on Canada Day, which is a Wednesday, and I don't have to work, obviously, because I'm from Canada. And we're going to be looking at the season 30 episode, Canada. And we're going to be talking about the Canadian connections to The Simpsons. And of course, next Saturday, we'll have a 4th of July episode because 4th of July is on a Saturday. And we'll be looking at the Bart Mangle banner from season 15. And then the Tuesday, the 7th, is another midweek episode because I have to miss out on work because of a dentist. And we're going to talk about season 4's great episode, Who Won It Best. That's all I got. I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.